The inhumane injustice that happened on June 30th, 1982 should never be forgotten. 3 judges were plucked from their homes in the cold of the night, sent to Bondasi barracks, shot and set ablaze. We should never forget that. The blood of the slain and the fire on their skin still screams today. The echoes of that scream can be heard in all the corridors of justice in the Republic of Ghana. The 1992 Constitution is the sunshine that rose from that event. But the shadows from the past did not leave us. It stays with us till today. Whenever there is an attack on justice in this country, we should know that that attack has led to fatality in the past. And so every little attack of the judiciary should be a reminder that we as a country have seen some darkness and we should never bring it back. My name is Nenebi Tony. I am a poet and a writer, and this is just a freestyle poem that just came on my mind when I was reflecting right now, actually, when I was getting ready to record this episode. This episode is supposed to be my retelling of the events surrounding justice in Ghana from 1980 to today. The poem just came, and you know, I'm a vessel as a poet, so when the muse gives me a message for you, I give it to you. Let's start the conversation. Let's start from 1980. There is a Supreme Court case called Tuffuor v. Attorney General, which happened in 1980. Every Ghanaian knows that case for the phrase, the Constitution is a living, breathing document. But let's look beyond that phrase and tell you a story about how that case came to be. Hilary Liman became president of the Third Republic of Ghana, and he purported to appoint Justice Apalu, who was already the Chief Justice, as Chief Justice, and asked Parliament to approve his appointment of Justice Apalu. And Tuffuor took the matter to court, and the Supreme Court, of course, ruled in favor of Tuffuor that the president can't do that. There is a concurring opinion in that case that I want to talk about. That concurring opinion by Justice V.C.R.A.C. Crabbe was the opinion that walked us through separation of power and judicial autonomy in Ghana. And Justice Crabbe said before he went to the court to read that decision, he went to his office at the Ghana School of Law and wrote his will and asked 2 lecturers at the Ghana School of Law to witness his will, put that will in his desk, and went to court to read his concurring opinion. What that tells me is that he knew ruling against the ruling government at the time was a risk that could lead to the end of his life. And he thought that that risk was worth taking to protect the Constitution of Ghana. So he did it. And so Justice Crabbe sacrificed his life before 1982. And his fear was realized in 1982 when 3 justices, Justice Sarkodie, Justice Agyapong, and Justice Koranteng-Addow ruled against the PNDC government, and they were taken away in the cold of the night, shot and set ablaze. And according to Justice Crabbe, when this happened, he went into exile and only came back to Ghana in 1998. So the court already lived in fear that something like this could happen to them, and then it happened. What do you think is happening in the court today? Now, there is a physical manifestation that if you are a judge and the presidency, the executive, or the ruling party have a problem with you, something could happen to you. But of course, the NDC does not like the current Chief Justice, Justice Torkornoo, and they want to remove her as Chief Justice. But thankfully, they can't just remove her because we have something called the 1992 Constitution. And let me tell you something about the 1992 Constitution. When the killing of the judges happened in 1982. That event really affected Justice Annan, who at that point was the de facto vice chairman of the PNDC. Rawlings really trusted Justice Annan. And Justice Annan thought, how can we stop this event from happening again in Ghana? And he thought the only way to do this is by making sure the military has less power in Ghana. And how can he do that? It's by making sure the ruler of the country is not a soldier. So he came up with 3 ideas. Draft a constitution for the Republic of Ghana, have separation of powers, and 3, convince J.J. Rawlings to retire from the military and run as a civilian. And all 3 events came to pass. So we have the 1992 Constitution because of the blood of the martyrs of law. And that 1992 Constitution have protected this country a million times. It was the 1992 Constitution that protected us in 2012 when President Mills passed away in office and his vice, now President Mahama, was sworn into power. And if you are an African, you know that that is not a small feat. That is an unprecedented event. Because in our neighboring country, Togo, they lost their president, Yandema. And Yandema's son was sworn in as president. And so the Nyasigbe dynasty have ruled Togo for 66 years because of how weak their constitution is. And because of how strong our constitution is, we do not have a dynasty in Ghana like that because the people always have a say, right? So we have the constitution because of these matters, and the constitution has protected us till date. And so we also have to protect the constitution. Me personally, I'll protect the constitution with my life because it is actually in the constitution to protect the constitution with your life. So, of course, there's the ongoing case of Justice Torkornoo, but I'm not too concerned about the case itself. It is going through a process. What I'm concerned about is the media reporting around the case. So members of the NDC, members of the government, and sympathizers of the NDC have been taken to the press to attack the Chief Justice while she is on suspension and under investigation. And she thought, you know what? I need to answer my critics because sometimes if you keep quiet, people will think you are guilty. So she spoke out, and now she's being attacked for speaking out. It is part of the Constitution of Ghana for us to have the freedom of expression, the right to fair hearing. So she exercised her freedom of speech and right to fair hearing when she had a press conference. And now she's under attack for that press conference. Bro, it is something that we as a country have to take note of. If they are doing it to her, they'll do it to us. Because the court is our last defense against politicians. Politicians have to subject themselves to someone. We, the people, they are supposed to subject themselves to us. And the way they subject themselves to us is through the court. Because if you have an issue with how somebody in power is abusing their power, the only thing you can do to them is take them to court. That's why we need the court to be independent. And in my opinion, I think that courts are generally fairly independent. You may not agree with some of their decisions, but it doesn't mean that they are biased just because you don't agree with their decisions. Did they give a good reason for their decision? For example, one of the complaints against Justice Torkornoo has to do with her ruling in Afenyi-Markins versus the Speaker of Parliament and Attorney General. And I'll say this, because of separation of power, the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court cannot ask the Speaker of Parliament of Ghana or the President of Ghana to appear before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court does not have power over the President or the Speaker of Parliament. Actually, there is a case called J.H. Mensah versus Attorney General, which the NDC loves because this case was in 1997. And in that case, the Supreme Court ruled that Parliament is the master of its own affairs. And so the Supreme Court cannot tell Parliament what to do. So the Afenyi-Markins case was not about Parliament. It was about a vacant seat. And the vacant seat is about representation of the people, not Parliament itself. So the Speaker of Parliament cannot come and answer about the vacant seat. The Speaker of Parliament does not have that authority over that vacant seat. We, the people, have authority over that vacant seat, right? That is why the only person who can speak for Parliament and the presidency is the Attorney General. That's actually how the Constitution set it up. So I don't know where this issue of her not hearing out the Speaker of Parliament comes from. So what you're trying to say is that the Chief Justice and Supreme Court can call the President of Ghana to come and answer to them at any time. That's not how the Constitution works. If the Supreme Court wants an answer about the presidency, they talk to the Attorney General. That's why in the case, it was J.H. Mensah versus Attorney General. The Attorney General represents the government. You feel me? Exactly. So the other petitions, I'm not really interested. Incompetence is not a grounds for removing of a Chief Justice. Incompetence, bro. Incompetence. How many incompetent politicians have we had in this country? Did we remove Mahama from office because somebody called him incompetent Mahama? No, we voted him out. So the way to get rid of a Chief Justice, if you think they're incompetent, is to wait for them to retire. That's the point I wanted to make. So subscribe to my channel. I offer unfiltered cultural commentary like this every Wednesday, even though I'm recording this on Monday, June 30th. And on Sundays, I offer a historical walk of the entertainment industry in Ghana. I'm primarily an entertainment writer. I authored a book. So on Sundays, we do history, and on Wednesdays, cultural commentary. So subscribe so you can hear more from me if you agree with my take. If you disagree with my take, let me know why you disagree and why I'm wrong. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing from you.